Tēnā koutou. We're from the Lesbian Rights Alliance Aotearoa. Here's our kaupapa.
We are here today to talk about a few key concerns: your misunderstanding of sex and gender, the fact that you're going to entrench sexism in law, the pattern of abuse overseas, your narrow view regarding ending discrimination, and of course your refusal to explain how women's rights will remain protected.
So this is our key question and the central issue. If any man can be a woman, what does that mean for women's rights?
So we have two terms, sex and gender, and they refer to two different things. Sex is biological and refers to reproductive capacity. There are two reproductive systems in humans, male and female. A tiny number of people will have a difference or variation of sexual development, and a tiny number of them will not be easily categorised as male or female at birth. In that situation, we support self-ID of sex for them later on.
We've included some common objections to save everyone's time. So you're saying women who can't XYZ aren't women. And no, we're just saying that there are two sexes in mammals resulting in two kinds of reproductive systems and two kinds of gametes. And you're saying that female babies must grow up to be feminine. And no, sex is biological. It says nothing about who you will love, your personality, expression, disposition, or ideas. When we say sex matters, this is because it's of significance when it comes to health and ending sex-based oppression. And then we get this classic line, so you're reducing women to their sex? And again, no. We simply want to reduce the difference between men and women to mere sex.
And so now we're onto gender. Gender is the process by which we associate female people with the colour pink and male people with the colour blue. It's also the process that means that the blue-coded group as a whole earn heaps more and own far more property, and the pink-coded group as a whole are expected to be family-focused, pressure to remove body hair and things like that.
Gender is the social value, expectations and limitations based on sex. It expects men to be masculine and women to be feminine. These gender roles are heterosexual. Worldwide, women fight against it.
It is hierarchical in structure, and men as a class benefit from the global subordination of women and girls. Using an intersectional analysis, we can see that, for instance, Black women experience racialized sexism, a hybrid of racism and sexism. Feminists understand that we are born into a sexist society, but women are not innately feminine, and men are not innately masculine.
We are very concerned about the submissions by rainbow and Christian conservatives who both believe in tying the idea of sex to personality, disposition, expression, and interests. We think it is just as regressive to believe your feelings, personality, disposition, expressions, and interests are a reflection of your sex and should be recorded in law, as it is to believe a person's sex determines those things.
Why is this feminist analysis of gender, which has existed for over 60 years and is widely accepted, less valid than the neoliberal conception that gender is innate and individual?
There is no one way to live as a woman or live as a man. This concept relies on gender roles and it has no place in our laws.
Next, we're going to talk about international patterns of abuse of self-declaration of sex laws, as it appears to have been left out of your analysis. We're going to go through 6 examples in 60 seconds because we're conscious of time.
In this example, at least 9 homeless women were subject to sexual harassment in the shower.
And here, at least 2 women were sexually assaulted by a convicted sex offender while in prison.
Here, marginalised women had their businesses targeted and were harassed for not waxing Jessica's male genitalia.
You'll be familiar with this case where a male dragged a rape crisis centre through the court system for over 10 years.
And here, a woman recovering from male violence and substance abuse issues was made to share a room with a male or leave the residence, supposedly female only.
And here again, we see males winning championships, which were designed to enable women to have a chance at winning in sport.
And of course, the recent WeSpar incident with the sex offender that you will have heard about a lot so far. That's our one for good luck.
And others. In all these examples, self-declaration of sex was a factor, and the people harmed were women and girls. We're left with a sexist pattern of abuse. We want women and girls in Aotearoa to have the strongest possible protection from male violence and abuse, including male abuse of the legal system. We hope that you share that goal and that you choose to modify this bill so that women and girls' sex-based rights stay protected.
Now we're going to touch on your narrow, binary ideas around ending unjust discrimination. When it comes to ending discrimination, the options are not allow self-declaration of sex or be a terrible person. Both things could be true, or neither. We know that gender non-conforming and non-compliant people face cruel discrimination. In the face of that, it's our responsibility to take action. Banks should not deny people access to the money system because of a mark on a birth certificate. Neither should housing be withheld from someone because how they look does not match what a landlord presumes someone from that sex should look like.
All gender non-conforming people must be protected from discrimination in housing, jobs, financial, schools, etc., regardless of what their birth certificate says. You should not need to hide your biological sex in order to be fully protected from unlawful, unjust and cruel discrimination. We need to create an Aotearoa New Zealand where being gender non-conforming is socially acceptable, not only for the few people who wish to alter their birth certificates, but for the many gender non-conforming people who have no reason or wish to do so.
Finally, we want to return to our core contention. How will women's rights remain protected when any man can legally declare himself a woman? A common response is that nobody would ever bother with paperwork to be a creep. Tell that to every abusive man who's ever fought for custody and then hurt his children. Every man who's applied to be in a position of power with the intention, primary or not, of abusing. Larry Nassar certainly bothered with paperwork.
There's a pandemic going on, one of male violence towards women and girls. We've gotten so used to it that we do not feel or notice it until something particularly scandalous happens. With the backdrop of men beating women in Aotearoa hundreds of thousands of times a year, how can you justify rolling back women's hard-fought-for protections?
Can you assure us that our rights as lesbians to offer lesbian-only spaces and services won't be undermined?
This proposal is about removing all previous safeguards in order to enable every New Zealander to self-declare their sex. As a result, it puts women and girls at a higher risk of abuse through the legal system and in female-only spaces and services. We have seen this pattern overseas and it is unacceptable. We do not think there is any justification whatsoever for further eroding the rights of women and girls on the basis of sex. We ask that you think creatively about ending discrimination so that you protect the rights and well-being of all without undermining women's rights.
If you enjoyed our presentation, we recommend donating to womenonweb.org or the Fistula Foundation. And if you want to learn more about how women got here, head to Dragon Cloud Press and purchase a copy of A Brief Complete Her Story. There are a range of volumes and it's a fantastic purchase. We are now available for questions.